We'll now move into our procedures for public meeting. Host a meeting on the matter requiring approval under the Planning Act. I'll call this public meeting to order and should advise you all that this public meeting is required under the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to proposed community planning permit bylaw for the property located at the intersection of Elm Street and Wilson Ave. This area has been identified as a location with potential significant residential housing as part of a cleanup and redevelopment. Before we begin, members of the public are advised that only specific stakeholders, including the applicant, the minister, public bodies, and any specified person as defined by the Planning Act, or the registered owner of any land to which the community planning permit bylaw would apply, may appeal council's decisions to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Therefore, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or makes written submissions to the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Those wanting to be notified of the council's decision on this application should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on and provide their name and address. Those that don't have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call customer service at 519-631-1680 extension 0 and provide that same information. Do any of the members of council have a disclosure of interest concerning the matters on the agenda? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
Your Worship, notice was provided in the St. Thomas Times Journal on Friday, January the 16th, 2026, and in accordance with council policies, notice was also mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. Also, just for the members' information, there was a public information session held on January the 28th at the St. Thomas Elgin Memorial Center.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to introduce the Housing Accelerator Fund Coordinator, Brandon Sloan, who will provide the background information on the proposal and present the draft bylaw. Please.
Thank you and good evening. Thank you, Your Worship, and to Council. So the proposed community planning permit bylaw is to allow for the development of a key intensification area in St. Thomas that many have been waiting to see cleaned up and reimagined and transformed into a new development. And for that area, we're currently calling it the Armory District. The area mainly includes 2 parcels of land, about 20 acres in total on either side of the trail at Elm and Wilson. There's also a 4.5 acre parcel of city land to the north of that off of Victor Drive that has the potential for some redevelopment as well. The arena site is included as a community use as part of the planning for this area. Now there's also existing sanitary, storm, and water surrounding the site. There's 2 arterial roads. There's some existing commercial nearby, employment uses. Pinafore Park is nearby, and their surrounding low-rise residential neighborhoods. The main objective for this bylaw is to facilitate the redevelopment of the former railway wheelhouse site and surrounding brownfield lands for residential uses. Considering the expense that goes into these types of projects for cleanup, along with using our existing services and using our land wisely, along with our housing needs that we have, we do know that this area makes sense that it should be for some higher density, high-rise residential development. Through the bylaw, development standards would be put in place that would look at appropriate transitions in building height so that we can limit shadow potential on surrounding areas and have a built form that's compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The intent is to have development that integrates with the surrounding uses and also our transportation network, including transit and trails, rec facilities, schools, the commercial uses, and our infrastructure. So with this type of bylaw, there's 3 classes. A class 1 permit would be for the base standards, that everything meets those base standards that are set in the bylaw. Class 2 includes variations to that and discretionary uses. And there's also the ability to have modifications to an approved permit as well. And those types would be for staff approvals. And then there's the Class 3 permits and bylaw amendments, which would be for council approvals. The process for a complete application is fairly quick. That is one of the advantages for the development proponent and for streamlining the process for these type of housing approvals. Decisions are within 45 days. Decisions for a CPP bylaw are likely approving it with conditions. It's also possible to have a provisional approval whereby maybe there's something on the site drawing that needs to be changed a little bit, or a traffic study needs an update to it before the permit is issued. There's the ability to do that within a decision as well. In these cases, the applicant has appeal rights. Similar to the way development approvals are with other types, under a community planning permit bylaw, there can be conditions, there can be development agreements, and it can include things like grading, infrastructure and servicing, traffic and transportation, along with taking of securities or other implementation and mitigation measures. So for this area, what we're looking at as the main permitted uses would be apartment buildings and retirement home, along with the community and recreation center, which would recognize the existing arena that's within this area. And then under a CPP bylaw, you can have a discretionary use. And so there's a list of mainly some medium density residential uses that are within this category, along with neighborhood commercial uses in a mixed use building. And those may be permitted subject to justification and a Class 2 permit. Some examples of discretionary uses are shown, including stacked townhouses and back-to-back townhouses. Essentially, these are different forms of multiple dwellings that are housing options that may be more attainable. Now, none of these are the exact proposal for these lands, but they are intended as precedent images and visualizations to convey that the site is intended for some higher density residential, mainly apartments. St. Thomas is growing up. So there are regulations like minimum setbacks and lot frontages and building heights. The one difference is there's 3 categories. So you have the base Class 1 permissions, or you can apply for a Class 2 or a Class 3 if it can meet those and justified under the criteria. Now, since the main permitted use for this area is apartments, there's a few things to draw your attention to. One is we're including some provisions about using floor space ratio as a built form measure instead of units per hectare or minimum unit sizes. The other thing that we have is the base maximum building height would be 15 stories for this area. And there's the potential to go higher subject to community benefits. And the other thing is that essentially the taller the building, the greater the setback to surrounding property line should be. And that's a new measure that we're putting in for this. There's a few other things for apartments, such as the maximum building length near a public street. They also minimum step backs for once a building goes higher that's adjacent to a public use, such as the trail or the arena or a public street. And also a minimum distance between residential towers so that apartment buildings aren't too close together. The other thing we're looking at is a minimum landscape percentage. There's some green space for this type of density. Given there's an adjacent business employment use, we have a provision about minimum setbacks and the ability to do a study to confirm and to mitigate the adjacent use. The bylaw details out things for discretionary uses. It gets into home occupations, accessory buildings, other structures, and general provisions. Things you'd normally see in a zoning bylaw. A zoning bylaw is not going to apply to these lands anymore, so we have to put some of that into this bylaw. And one of the key features for this CPP bylaw is that if a development's looking to have higher heights or a higher floor space ratio, that could be considered with justification and the provision of community benefits, which in this case, they're called facilities, services, and matters under the terminology and lingo. And for these lands, we're proposing that that anchor benefit is a minimum percentage of affordable housing. And then there's a list of 3 other types that could be selected from. So just briefly looking at those, and we are currently still working on refining some of the details and considerations within these community benefits. But as part of the proposed version for affordable housing, we're looking at a tiered approach. So essentially, the greater the percentage of affordable housing provided in the building, or the more deeply affordable, the greater the added building height and FSR. There's also the potential for a cash in lieu contribution or a combination. We've also included another benefit for public realm improvements. So if a developer provided more park space than required, or a financial contribution to improving the arena site with other recreational improvements, or an enhanced streetscape, that could equal more development. And the same for if a building achieves certain environmental performance, there could be added building height. If there's multiple items related to transit or our trail network or active transportation cycling, if we can achieve those, then that can also go towards potential more building height. So a quick example, if development of building provided 5% affordable housing, they did a financial contribution to improving recreation at the arena site or nearby, and they provided at least 4 of these transportation demand management items, that could get it to 18 stories if it's within what's permitted under that class 2 or the class 3. The bylaw also includes a parking section and a few different things that we don't currently have in zoning, such as bike parking requirements, shared use if there's mixture, accessible parking, and EV-ready spaces. The bylaw lists out the parking requirements for each use. A few other new items, we are including a minimum visitor parking requirement, a long-term bike parking requirement, which is more your indoor secure bike spaces, and then the short-term is more your outdoor bike rack spaces as well for each use. And there is the ability, again, if more of those active transportation or transportation demand management items are included, then that could justify a small decrease in the parking rate. But if they're going too far, then you've got to come with an application, a class 3 permit to council. So near the end here overall, this is a conceptual master plan for the Armory District. It's showing some high-rise, high-density sites at Elm and Wilson, transitioning to the north to some more medium-density, high-density residential. The arena site shown as community uses, and some potential conceptual trail and road connections. What we've heard so far from the PIC and the comments, there was a number of surrounding residents that attended the PIC, and we provided some more information. We had a lot of positive feedback by the end. I'd say traffic was the main concern that we would hear from this. There's also a written submission that's raised some considerations of the Heritage Rail Corridor and some of the site-specific studies that should be looked at. Many of those items can be addressed further with the technical studies as part of a development application. The city has reviewed the potential development as it relates to our sanitary and other infrastructure systems and the transportation network that's proposed under this bylaw. And we also continue to review this with the main landowner developer. And so we're reviewing the comments, we're including anything from today, and we'll be further addressing that in a recommendation report and a final bylaw that we are targeting early March for council. And with that, thank you.
Well, thank you. Madam Clerk, have we received any written submissions? I know that Brandon said there was one.
Yes, Your Worship. One submission from Molly Swift relating to railway corridor compatibility, infrastructure capacity, sewer, water, electrical, and potential effects on LMPS tourism viability.
Super. The first round of questions goes to council. So Councilors, if you have questions about the public meeting we're in, please use your hand, raise up, and I'll call on you. And when we've exhausted council questions, we'll move on to public questions. Councillor Clark. Councillor Baldwin-Sands to follow.
You mentioned with the provisions that there could be additional heights, and I just wondered what the maximum height would end up being. You mentioned 18 could be one of them.
Sure, through your worship. So the base maximum is 15 stories is what we're proposing. And then should there be the community benefits within a class 2 permit, it could be up to 20 stories. And then anything beyond that would have to come to council as a class 3 permit that could be higher than that.
Go ahead.
And have we worked out the business case for the dollars generated so that the payoffs, a story, 1-story addition would provide the developer with X amount of additional revenue monthly, and have we converted that over to what we're asking for in terms of community benefits, what we get out of that? And then my supplementary would be I think our newest ladder, fire truck ladder, goes 13 or 14 stories. And have we talked to the fire chief in terms of with anticipating larger buildings in St. Thomas, whether that means any additional training or any additional pieces of apparatus that are going to be needed in the near future?
Please.
Yes, thank you through your worship. Very good question. So we have been looking at that since the beginning in terms of what is the proportion of a community benefit, the amount of benefit that might be provided through the development versus the added number of units or heights, heightened development. And there's a little bit of a balance to it. We have been looking at it to see what is comparable to some of the things that would allow us to justify that it's a community benefit for affordable housing, let's say, or for a public realm improvement. As I noted in my comments, that is something that we're still refining, and we have been getting some feedback from the primary developer that is looking at this. And so we do expect maybe a few changes before the final version that's to come before you. But we have been looking at exactly that, and we're trying to kind of find the right balance there where it's not, overtaxing that it would limit to the development, but we also want to make sure we're getting a proportional value of something for it if they're getting more units. Sorry, and the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. And with regards to the fire, great question. And when we follow back up with a report, we'll have specific comments from the fire chief just to give council some alleviate any concerns. But in past discussions, past review with other development applications that we have, there haven't been concerns raised. The building code requirements now require such strict fire suppression that it's not that significant of an issue going up to 18, 20 stories. But we'll provide a formal comment from fire in our follow-up report.
Councillor Baldwin-Sands, then Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. A comment first, if I may. I would like to say thank you for using both the attainable in your preamble and then in the actual slide presentation, you talk about affordability. So I appreciated that you use both terms, and thank you to provide that clarity moving forward. My question is in regards to the EV charging stations, and I was wondering if that was based upon the ratio. Is it 1 per 100 units, et cetera? Because people know that it's better to build with the EV charging stations in as we move forward because it's most cost effective. There's also granting that's available for anyone that is doing this type of building. And as we move forward from and transitioning into the EV units, which will be coming on board at the mega site, we can see more people moving into the community that prefer the EV option. So is there a ratio that we have moving forward for the multi-residential units in regards to EV charging stations for the residents? Thank you. And also if there's going to be some on ground for either visitors or on ground parking.
Brennan?
Through your worship, the answer is yes. So the bylaw is proposing a minimum of 5% of the required parking spaces would be provided as EV-ready spaces. So for example, if 100 parking spaces required, then we'd look at a minimum of 5 spaces that would be needed. It does make sense, especially in St. Thomas, that we do this. I know there was some Ontario Building Code was kind of getting into this, but at this stage, this is what we're looking at for the bylaw to at least have some minimum percentage.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Thinking on the real estate side, I did attend the PIC.
Yes.
It took me a while to find the room they chose, though. It was at the back of the, anyway, it was an experiment.
The Lynch room.
To get there. But anyway, I was just thinking, do we have any say in whether these are condo sales or are they all rentals? Do we define that? Thank you.
That's a great question.
Through your worship, we do not necessarily have the ability to dictate tenure of whether or not it must be condo or must be rental. It does allow for either or both. Perhaps if the representative of the landowner is here and may be speaking, they could speak to what they typically do. And the other thing is just a note about the PIC meeting room location was the absolute closest meeting room to the site that we could find. You open the back door, you see the site. Thank you.
Okay. I'll go to Councillor Rymal, please.
Just a question. I think the plan is great and it's great to have guidelines and parameters, but how do you minimize the developer then, well, now I'm going to make amendments to the bylaw?
Please.
Through your worship, that's always a possibility that there could be amendments. We are looking at things that would, I would suggest facilitate a number of options that could be done through a Class 1 permit or even a Class 2 permit at the staff level, which also helps with expediency and timing. If there was an amendment needed, that would be going through the council process. But at some point in time, a landowner could always propose an amendment to this bylaw, but we're doing our best to come up with a pretty good comprehensive plan out of the gate. It is our first one though, so we will be seeing how it goes.
Brendan, if I can share, we chose this as our first community area plan for exactly that reason. So we could be more specific of the site plan itself. Am I remembering that right?
Yes, Your Worship. It was it's one to help facilitate this kind of long-standing vacant site and get some redevelopment happening. Two, this is a huge opportunity for housing and for our community, and at a time where we're going to need it. But also, it does help us focus on one primary landowner in the city, so that we can really tailor it to this specific site. If we were going to do this in the future in a larger area, there might be some slightly different parameters.
Okay. Councillor Wookey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm very excited about this because of what you just mentioned. This property has been sitting there for a very long time, very contaminated, very low use. And I want to applaud the people, the folks who bought it, who obviously put in a lot of work already to clean it up. And I hope they come back to us with a recommendation for higher elevation because we're growing, and it's an ideal spot for many people for many different reasons. And if in that we can expedite the process, make it easier for them to develop, in the end we get some things that we want, then this turns out to be one of the best things that could possibly happen in the city of St. Thomas. And then if it provides us with a template for future developments that are like this, and then we learn from that too, and we can tweak a little bit in the future. So this is, like, in my mind, just a win-win-win-win for everybody. And I want to reserve my spot on the 18th floor next week. So thank you very much.
You'll have to hang from something next week, but we'll make sure that you're, yeah. I saw another hand. Did I see another hand? No? Okay, well, at this point, then I'll say that counselors have asked their questions. You can jump in at any time during the rest of the meeting also and ask further as further come up. But we'll now open the meeting to questions from the public for those who are attending and who have not already submitted their concerns or comments to the city. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you've called into the meeting using a telephone, please do *9. The questions will be taken in the order of which we get your ask to ask a question. And when given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the clerk's records. Online, if we have anybody who would like to participate, please use the raised hand icon. If we have anyone in the gallery who would like to participate, our great deputy clerk is up there with a microphone. So we'll go one way or the other and ask for comments from the council from questions from those online or comments, and also in the gallery. And I'll ask one more time. Please give us your name and address, please.
Valerie Shea, 87 Wilson Ave. So my front porch is right across. So my question is, if we're looking at up to 18 to 20 stories, are they going to be set back on the other side of the trail, like on the east side of the trail, or will they also be on the Wilson Ave side as well?
I think as shared, there would be some on each side of the trail situation, but with the height that Brandon suggested, then the higher the building, the further from say Wilson or Elm Street they would be.
Right. And how long of a project is this? Like, how long are we looking at? I assume we're talking about years.
Probably a multi-year. I mean, this is a fairly large development in our community. We do need, obviously, housing's been a crisis in our community, so we continue to need the housing, but the developer can only build so much at once. This developer, I've kind of been watching his performance in other communities, and certainly goes in and does fairly large developments in a fairly shorter period of time. But construction in Canada certainly is limited by how bad the winter might be, and you know, at just the plain length of time it takes for construction. But I shouldn't be answering these questions. I'm just the chair tonight, so Brendan, if you want to, or if, go ahead, please, if you have other questions.
Yeah, I do. Can I ask, is it Drulo?
I'm sorry?
Is it Drulo that's doing the building? Am I allowed to ask?
Drulo, yes, I think that's been a fairly common message, that that's the developer we're currently working with on that site. So yes, I don't know, am I being wrong in saying that? I think we've been pretty good neighbors and pretty good communicators, so.
Okay.
Did you wanna?
I will make a comment. I will not miss the teenage donut doers in the gravel parking lot across the street. Okay.
So I'm not sure I heard that, because my hearing is terrible.
I said I will not miss the donut doers in the gravel parking lot across the street.
Okay.
Anyways, okay, no, that's it. I'm assuming sewage and that kind of stuff will be sort of worked out as time goes on.
We count on our planning department to fix that, clean it, and make it exactly what we're looking for. And that's why we hold the public meeting, so your input tonight can help them make it what we need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
Carrie O'Brien on behalf of the owner of majority of the lands, Drulo Holding. So I did try to take a few notes. I will sort of answer generally what I've heard tonight. Start by commending staff for the innovative approach to reducing red tape. I think it's great. I think it sets St. Thomas apart from the rest of the communities in southwestern Ontario. They have been great at contacting us throughout the process to ensure that what is being proposed works for the intended development. So Councillor Reimel, to your question, the intent is not to move forward with too many amendments. We've been trying to accommodate the style of development that we're looking for as part of this community planning permit. Councillor Taylor, to your question, Drula Holdings is a purpose-built rental holding provider, so we have no intent of proceeding with condos on the land. EV charging stations, Councillor Baldwin Sands, something that we facilitate in our development. No problem with the EV Ready 5% that Brandon mentioned. We're working with multiple partners to access the grants that are available for development. The one challenge that we do see is the availability of electrical resources, I guess. And if that is available through Integris, whether it's an EV Ready or it's an actual EV charging station, that's kind of the distinction that we work throughout construction. And then to answer the public's concern about height, we have done our best to set any height towards the rail corridor and then further to the east parcel, keeping everything along Elm and Wilson at about 6 stories in height, and also setting it back from the public right-of-way. This is a huge development and is expected to take a number of years. That all depends on market uptake throughout construction. We're always available. Drulo is the constructor throughout. Any public concerns can be directed to our office, and we're happy to address those as needed. I am here if council has any additional questions.
Well, Ms. O'Brien, thank you for answering all of the questions asked. It's great to have you here today to do that too. Further questions from council? Seeing none. Questions from online? I see no raised hand icons there. Give them a second. Seeing none. Any further questions from the public? I'll ask one more round of that. Council, further questions on this amendment? Online, anyone wishing to participate, please raise hand, wave, yell, scream, do whatever you need to do. And any further questions from the public tonight? I'm going to suggest that everyone's been given a fair opportunity to express their views. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of the bylaw for the proposed amendment should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca and provide their name and address. Those that don't have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call customer service at 519-631-1680, extension 0, and provide the same information. This public meeting is now concluded.